As you write your life story, you're far from finished. Are you looking to close the book on your job? Maybe turn a page in your career? Be continued at the Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies. Our professional master's degrees and certificates are designed to meet you where you are and take you where you want to go. At Georgetown SCS, the learning never stops, and neither do you. Write your next chapter. Be continued at scs.georgetown.edu/podcast.
Looking for the ultimate night out? Experience the action from a luxury suite at Capital One Arena. Watch Ovechkin chase history as the Capitals hit the ice, or catch the Wizards take on the NBA's best. Rock out with Disturbed, vibe with Mary J. Blige, or dance the night away with Kylie Minogue. Premium seating, VIP service, and unforgettable moments all under one roof. Book your suite now at CapitalOneArena.com/premier. Capital One Arena. Watch in style, live in the moment.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of this podcast where we obsessively talk about punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, whatever it is, as long as it is of the DIY variety. Because truthfully, I would get bored if I just talked about one particular genre of music. Like, I will always define myself as a hardcore kid, but at the end of the day, your musical taste should hopefully open up a little bit as either you get older or just get exposed to more stuff. And, hopefully this show is part of that exposure. Today, I have a great guest because he not only is a friend of the show, a repeat guest, which I tend to not really do, but he's a special person. His name is Brenden Murphy. He's the vocalist for Counterparts and End, and he is a great dude. Been a friend of mine for quite some time, and met him, many, many moons ago at Chain Reaction. One of the first times that Counterparts came through Southern California. I've always loved the band. They surprise dropped a new EP late last year, 2024, and they're going to be on tour all throughout the United States and Canada in February and March with Pain of Truth, Malevolence, Foreign Hands. You need to pay attention to what these shows are, because truthfully, they're going to be the largest that Counterparts has ever really played in the United States of America. And that's going to be exciting to watch that and have people drawn in by the cool, heavy, melodic, hardcore nature of what Counterparts is going for. So I, for one, am excited about this. But Brenden and I, we joke around, we bust each other's chops, but then we also, talk about serious things like how crazy it is that hardcore is as popular as it is now, and how that's benefited the band, and maybe how that's, affected the bands, how they, approach their business, all that sort of stuff. And ultimately, I ask him a very important question that regarding nicotine consumption. I don't consume nicotine, but, I know Brenden dabbles in it. So I had to get to the bottom of that. But all joking aside, great interview. And if this is your first time here, dive back in the archives. We've got, a conversation with Brenden from 7-8 years ago that's just as relevant. I mean, you can trace the evolution between him then and a him now, and it's fun. It's exciting. And you can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I welcome any and all feedback, submissions, whatever's on your mind. Love to have that interaction with you. Also, please leave a rating and review. I know every podcast asks you for these things, and I am no exception to the rule. So if you are listening on Spotify, just toss a star rating on there. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a star rating. Or if you're feeling generous, you can leave a word review, like a sentence or two being like, hey, this podcast is cool. You should check it out. All that stuff helps out the algorithm in regards to recommendations, all of that sort of stuff. And also, thank you for listening, because truthfully, it's very meaningful that you show up week after week after week, or maybe you just dip into the episodes that you care about. And that's totally fine. It's here for you whenever you want it to be. And I like that I have this, one-sided relationship with you. Sometimes it breaks over into two-sided relationships because some of you come up to me at shows and are like, hey, I listen to the podcast, or huge fan, or whatever. Love to see that. So thank you for all of that. And let's talk about weekly recommendations. I have been doing this since the beginning of last year, and I'm going to continue to do that because truthfully, new music, how do you get exposed to it? Friends, family, the algorithm is somewhat trustworthy, but at the same time, it's also, you want to have some validation. So this is a record from an artist named, excuse me, Cameron Winter. He put out this record called Heavy Metal late last year on Partisan Records, home of Idols, Blonde Shell, and just a ton of huge, cool indie rock bands. I knew nothing about him. I heard about him on another podcast I listened to. They described him as a modern day Lou Reed, which I was like, okay, that's some pretty lofty praise. But I listened to the record and fell in love with it immediately. So he also plays in a band called Geese. Literally never heard of them before. But I would describe this just from a layman's perspective, which I have no knowledge of him or his previous music at all. But it's kind of like Sufjan Stevens adjacent, except he has a very unique vocal delivery that's warbly, some pretty interesting lyrics as far as like there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff going on there, a lot of humor, but it's just a beautiful listen. I'm going to see him in early February in LA, and I am so excited to watch him because I don't know what I'm in for. But the record is gorgeous. Like I said, it's called Heavy Metal. Cameron Winter is the artist. I'm going to toss a link in the show notes for a summation playlist, a summarized playlist. There we go. That puts all of the music at your fingertips that I've been recommending on a week-to-week basis. Hopefully you find something that you like. And if you do, email me, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Love to have that feedback. So anyways, let's talk to Brenden from Counterparts, who, like I said, released a new EP late last year. It's really, really good. Going on tour February and March throughout the United States and some of Canada. And let's talk to him. I wouldn't call it necessarily jokes out of the way first, because clearly we'll be joking throughout most of this in some capacity. But everybody really enjoys to call you an unhinged interview. And I don't...
Wait, who said that? Who the hell would say that?
Right. And that actually prompts the question, when did you first start to notice that people would say that about you, like, sort of in the ecosystem, as it were, where it's like, oh man, Brenden just kind of like hangs out and shoots it straight or whatever. Was it pretty much like from the get-go of you doing interviews, or was this a slow roll, as it were?
I think it's a bit of both. Like, yeah, the way that I am now, I guess, like me personally, I don't think that I've gotten like more open or more, like more unhinged or anything like that by any means. I just think that over time, I guess people, when you do it so often, like when we're doing interviews and just like my online presence with like my personal social media, and then the band online presence, because I'm running the band social media too, so it's basically the same. So I think that just over time, it just kind of became, that's the norm. Like I personally don't think I've switched necessarily, where it's like, oh, if you look at older interviews, I was like really serious and direct and to the point, it's like, nah, you kind of just like, this is kind of just the way it's been my whole life. Cause I don't have it in me to like not goof around, you know what I mean? And it's like to a fault. I know that it like, as much as it's like sick, and it's nice knowing that I can like kind of just do whatever. I'm sure it's detrimental in some ways, to where it's like, okay, this guy's just like, he's just fucking around. Like he doesn't really take anything seriously. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, I take the lyrics and the music part really, really seriously. And then if I just do that, then that kind of opens me up to treat everything else as a goof. So, but I guess, I mean, like I said, I personally don't notice it. And like, I don't think it's gotten any crazier. I just think, I guess as it's become more accepted and people are, they're interviewing me knowing like, okay, yeah, he might just like go off on a fucking tangent about something. It's more expected now, so I do feel like I can like lean into it a little bit more. But
Sure.
yeah, overall, I think I've just been nuts the whole time, and
Just
I
more
don't think
people
it's
are
gotten
recognizing
any
it
better,
now.
But yeah, exactly. I don't think it's gotten any better, but I don't think it's gotten any worse either. So whatever, decent place to be in.
Yeah, I think you're, and I agree with your sentiment, knowing you as long as I have, and just like there's a consistency, I think, in some people with the way that they not only are as a human, or if they decide to adopt some, affectation or persona based around their band. Like I know that you are friendly with him as well, but I always make fun of Liam from Counterparts when he puts on his rock and roll voice in between each songs, because he doesn't talk like that normally, but at the same time, there's a little bit of that in him. So even though it's like, a performance, there's still that connective tissue there to where it is that you are as a person. Like, you've always been that, smart ass, tongue in cheek person. And now it's just more people are being exposed to it, where it's just like, I can't believe he said, I don't care if you mosh, I still get paid every night. Or it's like, yeah, he's been saying that for a while, guys.
And like that's sort of the crazy thing that comes with it too, where it's like, okay, so like, I guess at the start of the band, like I didn't like have it in, I don't know, like I like to think that my, meeting people, and like, I'm a pretty like social guy. I'm like outgoing and stuff. I'm not very introverted. Like, I can just kind of hang. But when we started the band and stuff, it's like, like you were saying about like rock star voice stuff, I'm just like, I straight up don't have it in me. Like, I can't, like, I won't be able to say it without laughing. Like, I will not, like, I'll break for sure, and I won't be able to get like to do it. So I just went like, fuck it. Like, the people are just gonna get what they get. And like, even, and it was, I guess it was a really big issue when the band first sort of took off, because it was like, obviously people are just kind of hearing about us for the first time. And then there was years and years of just like, this is to be expected. No one bats an eye at it. It's just like, yep, okay, whatever. Like, I can kind of get away with anything. But then I guess recently, like being on tour, and it's like with both bands, I think that the level where we're at, it's like, and some of the tours that we do and stuff, it's like, if it's a headliner, that's one thing, but if it's a support tour, there's always going to be people in the room that don't know you, right? And it's like, even if, like when I think about, like, most of the tours that we do, it's like, there's a line, like none of them are that crazy. And it's like, why are these bands touring together? This doesn't make sense. There's always something there to connect the two. But I think I kind of overestimate the crossover for both, just because like, well, I'm in this world and like, I know a lot of different bands, and I can see it, but a lot of kids are just like fucking dumb, right? And they like don't know a lot, like, they have like the couple bands that they're into, and that's kind of it. And they're, maybe dumb's not the right word, but like, fuck it, go to Kumon and figure it out. But
sure.
Like, yeah, I guess there's always and especially the bigger the tour, like the bigger the tour, the bigger your band gets, like the more you're putting yourself in front of people who have no idea who you are. And so it was hard at first to do that, because people were just like, what's this guy's deal? And then there was like this just years of, okay, that's just what he does. And then as of late, we've been doing stuff, and it's like, it's kind of happening all over again. Like, I sort of see people being like, I don't get it. Like, what's this guy's fucking deal? Like, what's he so mad about? Like, I thought their set was good. And it's like, and having to kind of deal with that. And I'm like, I guess the good thing is, like, kids that like us, I don't even have to respond. It's like, they just kind of go to bat for me, and they're just like, he says that every night, dumbass. Like, right. Like, he's not being serious. Like, shut up. And I'm just like, oh, sick. Okay. That rocks. Cause like, I don't know. I want to be me, and I want to be as authentic as possible. It's like a big, like, that's a big, like, yeah, it's like a value that I have. Like, I want that. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, okay, I can see why someone who's never heard of us walking out of the bathroom as we start, just being like, what the fuck is happening? Like, what's this guy's problem? I get it, but I'm also just like, hey, like, if I'm like saying it and like giggling and I have like a smile on my face, like, do you really think I'm seriously like, oh, I fucking hate you? Like, if I'm like, you guys suck, you're pissing me off, like, I fucking hate this city, like shit like that, and I'm like giggling, it's like, okay,
read the room.
Come on. Yeah. Yeah. Like, do you like you and especially too, where it's like you'll always have those like outliers in the crowd, but it's like, yo, look around. Like, is anybody else like jaw on the floor? Like, I can't believe he'd say that. It's like everyone else is laughing. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, read the room, right? Where it's like, yo, look around. Like, if you're the only person that's like not in on the joke, it's like, okay, maybe just figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm not. If I hated these like touring and playing shows so much, I just wouldn't. Like, I'd just do it because it's funny, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it's gotten us into too much trouble. Maybe like a little bit. I don't know. I've like made fun of bands and shit and like goofed on people, but I like to think I'd save it for when it's deserved and whatever. And if anybody's mad, I'm just like, okay, sorry, like my bad. I was just fucking around. But
right,
you know,
and kind of on that topic too, that expression of yourself and the idea that people, especially people that play in bands, have to have some sort of, you know, professionalism about them, where it's like, okay, because we're a bigger band now, because we're, you know, headlining the House of Blues across the country or whatever, like there needs to be a presentation to show or whatever. And kind of along that line is the fact that since you have been very open, vulnerable, and honest over the course of the band's life, that I know a lot of people like check in on you. Where they're like, I legitimately am worried about Brenden, and I don't know, like, I only know him through his music, but like, he genuinely does not seem to be, you know, well, or what have you. And the question in there is the idea that have you had to kind of like recalibrate or modulate how often you are, you know, putting that stuff out there, whether it's a bit or whether it is something that, you know, you are just expressing yourself, or is it still kind of just like, well, you know, let it fly and then adjust afterwards?
I think for me, I'm definitely on the let it fly and adjust afterwards kind of thing. But for the most part, I think that like, I don't know, like I feel it's probably just, you know, it's my brain. Like I'm around me 24/7. So it's like, I get it. But I feel like, I guess maybe if you just put somebody in front of me and I'm like doing my thing and they don't know the band, they don't know me, they don't know anything, and they're just like, yo, is that guy like good? Like he, you know, he kept saying he's gonna he's gonna make a bomb or something, and I'm like, yeah, like I get why that would be weird, but I also think like at this point now, 90% of people, maybe even more, it's like if I'm saying anything, chances are it's like, okay, this isn't really like eating me up too much. And it's like, yes, there's sort of the rare, like maybe not so rare, but like, I guess, like irregular moments where I am 100% like I'm being serious. It's not a bit. I'm talking about my mental health or how I'm doing and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think kind of based off of like the people that are really close to me, they don't, when I'm goofing off and like making fun of shit, like even if I say the most like heinous shit, my friends usually get it and they're like, oh, that's a fucking normal Tuesday for him. Like he's like, you know, doing death threats and all this fucking shit. Like he's just like, yeah, that's just what he does. But it's almost at the point now where it's like, if I don't do that, that's when people worry. Like if we play a show and I'm like not doing well and I don't really make fun of the crowd or talk shit or whatever, and I'm just very like, hey, what's up? We're Counterparts. Like, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. That's when I'll see stuff on the internet, or I'll have people after the show or friends being like, hey man, like everything all right? Everything good? And I'm just like, damn it, I can't, you know, I like kind of can't win with it. But at the same time, like I said, that being open and authentic and stuff and that's very important to me. So I kind of like that I'm in a position where I'm able to do that, because there are a lot of people in our world who, like, I literally see it, and it's like I see them try to do what I'm doing and then they fail, and people are just like, nope, like, this guy fucking sucks. And it's like, for whatever reason, I'm awarded more like leniency or grace or whatever it is, and I get to just be me. And I think that's like, that's one of the coolest things about being in the band is I don't have to worry. Yeah, maybe there's a couple people who are like, this guy's a fucking idiot, and I'm like, whatever. But
right.
I don't like, it's not often that I sort of recalibrate and go like, okay, maybe that was fucked. Like, if anything, it's like, yeah, maybe managers or label or something being like, bro, like, please delete that. And I'm like, fine, whatever, sure. but
right.
But from me, I'm like, nah, like, I think I'm all right. This is all on brand. It all makes sense. And I don't think it should be too scary. I think the scariest thing would be if I just kind of stopped being funny and like stopped posting and was like, that would be so weird to where it's like, okay, something's up. So
yeah, no, totally.
But hey, look out for that,
Yeah, hey, that could be the next album cycle. It's totally fun, This EP is the fun one, and the LP is going to be the really. I'm just going to be very serious in regards to the way I approach the band now.
Yeah, I mean, nah, I don't have any. We like, no, you don't. I mean, even with this EP, it's like it's more serious in a lot of ways, but I still think it's very much like, it's nothing like out of the ordinary for me. It's just like, okay, maybe just like, yeah, be like a little bit more mindful of like what you're doing and like how you're talking and shit like that. But not like, it's not like I have to relearn how to post on Twitter and stuff like that. It's all very much the same, but just being a bit more mindful and basically having our managers being like, you made fun of this guy and this band and they suck, but their booking agent books this tour or books this festival, and like, you see how the paths get crossed, and like, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. All right, I'll stop then. I'll stop.
Our friends at rockabilia.com want you to know that you can buy anything that you potentially can think of from a merchandise perspective, because first off, they'll give you 10% off by using the promo code 100 words or less. Secondly, they've got 500,000 items. I don't care if you're into death metal, if you're into indie rock, if you're into, the most mainstream of mainstream artists, they got it all for you. But biggest takeaway is that it's all officially licensed. So that means the bands get paid, you support an independently run company, and then on top of it, you get rad merch. Like, it's just so cool what they do. They ship from the Midwest in the United States. It gets to you very quick. And if you ever run into any issues whatsoever, their customer service is top notch. Sometimes I just like to message them just to say what's up, which I know maybe that's wasting their time. But regardless, rockabilia.com, go shop until you get a rad Valentine's Day gift for, it's right around the corner for your significant other. Just go ahead and do that, and then they will be stoked. So 100 words or less is the promo code for 10% off your entire order, rockabilia.com. The EP, like you were just alluding to, the fact that when you're in a band for, frankly, as long as you have been existing in a band, and not only, your own Counterparts band, but obviously End as well, you kind of start to run out of things to do. And you're just like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and surprise drop this EP. And, there comes a point where it just really is like, we need to do this in order to not only make sure that we're not bored in constantly presenting ourselves in the same way. I'm going to guess that some of that thought process was attached to you releasing it as you guys did. Or was that simply just because of the excitement around the fact that you could, own a particular couple of days, which sounds even sad to say, but a couple of days, in the attention span. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's both. It's both of those. Like, I definitely, I'm with you 100% where, Counterparts has been a band for so long. And like, at this point too, it's like, the band really started doing stuff like right when we graduated high school. It was like 2009. Right. So it's been so many years and we have so much music. It's just like, okay, like what the hell do we do? Like how do we like create this sense of urgency or something? And I think that both of those are related to where it's like, yes, I want to do something new, something that we haven't really done. I mean, I don't know, I guess we did it for the live record, but that's straight up board audio from a fucking show. It's like, like I didn't think anybody was going to buy those, but it's like you have to kind of hit both to where it's like, I'm bored. We got to do something different. We have to stand out a little bit, with the goal being like, why do we have to do that? So that way we can sort of like occupy a couple days, like you said. And like, that's literally where it's at this point, the attention span with people and with music. It's like, you see it more sort of like in the pop world, I think, where huge artists can like get away with just dropping something and they're like, I'm a millionaire. Like, I don't care how many copies this does first week. Like, I don't care about Billboard. Like, I have a mansion and 10 cars. Like, this shit doesn't fucking matter to me. Like, I'm good, which obviously that's not the case for us. Like, it's very much the opposite. But being able to do that and sort of just like, yeah, if we, it's already like an EP, and in my mind, I'm like, quality over quantity, I guess. Like, would four more songs, and making it an LP, like, would that really make it mean that much more to people? It's like, I personally don't think that matters. I think if the quality's there, it could be 2 songs and it could be just as big. So for us, it's like, it's this EP, and there's already like, the way everybody thinks about EPs and all that stuff. And they're just like, well, if it was a full length, like we could do a rollout and do all this shit and all this crazy marketing stuff. And it's like, well, we can still do that for an EP too, right? Like, what's the difference? Like, even the size of the vinyl isn't different. We still press it on a 12-inch. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So, but everything at this rate, it does move really fast. And like, there are bands that are in our world where it's like, they don't have to worry about, putting something out and being like, are people going to like, is this going to be like all everybody talks about for a week and then that's kind of the end of it? It's like, they don't have to worry about that, but we have to worry about that. Like, we absolutely need to worry about that, because there's never been this like urgency, I guess, attached to Counterparts. It's always been like, oh, they put out a new record, like, I'll check it out eventually. Like, oh, they're coming here on tour. Like, all right, yeah, if I don't have any other plans, I'll buy a ticket like the day before. Like, that sort of stuff. It's never like, holy shit, they did something, I'm listening to it now. I'm buying a pre-sale ticket now. The show's not for 3 months. Like, we don't get that. So I think, one of the main reasons, aside from just dropping an EP out of nowhere, like, it's like pretty fucking cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yep, hey, check this out. Like, it's like, again, going back to it, it's like, it's pretty funny. Like, it's a goof, I guess. There was some sort of like, there very like very much was like intention behind that. And even at this point now, like, we dropped it and it was like, the response was crazy. And it was like, watching the Spotify like artist app, like the streams for it go up and up. And it was like, holy shit, like, the EP is going to hit like 1 million streams in 24 hours, like all of this stuff. And it was just crazy. And even now it's like, the record's been out for 3 weeks, I think. And it's just like, I don't really see anybody talking about it too much anymore. So it's like, oh, cool. So what do we have to do for the next one? Like, we have to just randomly show up to people's houses and like give it to them, and like play it in their living room. And that's how we get their attentions. Like, we can get their attention. But yeah, I think it was, I think it was a bit of both. Like, the need to, because we're at, it's like over, like, it's like almost, it's like almost like 20 years, you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, we got to do something a little bit different, and if we do it in a way that grabs people in a way that we haven't really been able to attain in the past, I think that was sort of the driving like that's what drove us to sort of do it as this like secret. So
right. Well, and then obviously Kendrick Lamar stole your thunder, and then that's no one cares about Counterparts anymore. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
saw that.
The only reason. That's the only reason why people aren't talking about our record anymore. It's we got to compete with that and knock loose on Jimmy Kimmel and all these things. It's just like, oh yeah, whatever. Like you never know what would have happened. Like we were freaking out because it was going to come out so close to election day. We're like, dude, like if we do all this fucking work in secret and like, depending on what happens with the election, I'm like, if there's like riots and shit, I'm just like, God damn it. Like it's going to all be for nothing. Luckily, it did pop. And that was like easily the craziest response for anything that we've ever done, period, in the history of the band. So
yep.
I think it worked. I think so. We'll see, we'll see we'll see in February on the headliner how well it worked, I guess.
Right. Totally. And on that topic too, the clearly existing in a band and frankly playing so many different types of shows, not only with Counterparts, but End and festivals, and watching I know you are, self-described perpetually online, like many of us are, and watching the transcendence of the way that hardcore and, metallic hardcore is perceived now versus, 10 years ago is obviously night and day. And I know everything ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And I know you're thankful about it because clearly, 10 years ago, you probably would have said, oh, okay, Counterparts is still a band. Are you sure about that?
For sure. Yeah. Without question.
But, for you noticing, the different people coming to shows and stuff like that, what do you notice any like marked change besides the fact that there's just like more people at shows, broadly speaking, now than there was, 5 to 7 years ago? Or do you notice, other intricacies that you see from where you sit?
I think, I guess like from there's, I guess, like two ways to think about it, where it's like from a band standpoint, I think that really it's like kind of similar. Like, yeah, maybe the just the amount of people in the room, is kind of this, it's like, it's similar, it's changing. Like as long as it's going up by a little bit every time, then that's fine. That's totally cool by me. If it starts going the opposite, like then I'm applying at Best Buy, you know what I mean? But like with the way that stuff is, like I guess I didn't really notice it, because when I think about it, like TikTok kids, for example, like that is such like a crazy thing. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm seeing that stuff like on my feed. Like I'm seeing all the videos with like Knock Loose audio and like Kubicon audio and Bad Omens and stuff. And it's like, that's all like, yeah, I'm sure I'm seeing it because like I follow those guys, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, cool. Like I know them and I'm in this world. It's like, yeah, it makes sense that it goes to me, but I didn't really realize how like, like I guess like how crazy like even stuff like TikTok has affected our world and like metalcore, hardcore, whatever it is, and seeing it is insane. Like I hadn't really seen it until End played a show recently with like it was a Kubicon headliner in New Jersey, and it was them, E-Town Concrete, and us, and I just remember everybody like Will in the he's like, can we please just play this show? Like the money's not great, like whatever, but like gotta play with E-Town, like this sort of thing. And it's in New Jersey, you know what I mean? And then sort of seeing that and being like, going to check out their set and just being like, damn, like nobody here really knows who that is and stuff. And our set was a little different, and kind of like looking out into the crowd and being like, what is it? Like what, I'm like, what's going on with these kids? Like, did they fucking hate that? And then seeing Kubicon's response be insane. And I'm thinking about it and I'm just like, fuck, there's so many kids that just don't know who we are. And they're learning. And it's like, for all I know, that could be one of these kids' like first shows. Like it could be the first time they're seeing a breakdown live in person. And I hadn't really thought about that in years because this has just been my life for, forever. And like, I'm not saying that it's like, that it's bad. It's just insane watching that. Like in my mind, I'm like, people just getting into heavy music in 2024. I'm like, that's nuts. In my mind, I would have thought it would have been the opposite by like, finally everybody, would have been like collectively like, no more screaming. We're done. Like, we don't want to hear them screaming anymore. Like, just sing, just hit notes. But there's still so many kids just getting into this. And I like, it's great. I think it's insane. Like, yeah, Knock Loose was on Jimmy Kimmel last night. That's insane. Like the amount of people that saw it, that, whether or not they liked it, that just were, they're watching Kimmel and they're fucking forced to see it. And they're just like, oh, they might not have ever heard about Knock Loose otherwise, or like even heard music with screaming in it otherwise. And I think that there's all these weird avenues now, like seeing stuff like that happen and seeing like them and Turnstile and Speed playing Coachella, and like there's so much like crossover now. And then you add that into like TikTok and stuff, and it's just like the amount of new people coming in is insane. And I think it's it's like, yeah, it's like, I mean, I guess for sure it's like goofy in a lot of ways, but it's it's only benefiting us. It's like benefiting the genre. Like maybe not necessarily like certain bands. It's like, I definitely don't think that like Jimmy Kimmel's going to call me and be like, hey, you want to fucking do it too? Like, that's not happening. There's outliers in every scenario, but I think that like, these bands and making this genre just like, I guess, more reachable for people that wouldn't be able to reach it otherwise. I think that's sick. Like that's the coolest thing. It's, it's like, I see people being annoyed and stuff, being like, the fucking TikTok kids don't know how to mosh at the show and they don't get it. And they hate, they hate when people stage dive. And it's like, yeah, minor, like annoyances for sure. But on the whole, I think it's a really good thing. And I didn't expect this at all. I didn't, 5, 6, 10, whatever years ago, if it's like, hey, like heavy music's going to like kind of have another moment, I'd be like, you're fucking dreaming. Like there's no
totally
way. But it's really cool. Like it reminds me of, all like the MySpace era again, just, everybody has a better haircut and their clothes are a little bit looser. So
yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. No, it's a very, the parallel is obvious because I think, I think the main difference there, to your point, is the fact that you're seeing a physical manifestation, like kids going to shows, everything that you're talking about. Whereas I know like the MySpace era, yes, there were kids coming to shows, but for how many, plays like Job for a Cowboy got on their MySpace player, it was like 79 bajillion. And then you're like, oh, they can play in front of 500 people, but that's just because of where the scene was. But now that you have all this kind of like working together in some sort of weird flywheel, that all of a sudden you are getting these kids who are, they have no experience with E-Town Concrete or End, but then they're just like, oh yeah, dude,
exactly.
Can't wait to mosh.
Yeah. And like that, and that's sort of, like on one side, it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, watching like the fucking army guy that has never been to a heavy show in his entire life, like doesn't understand hardcore dancing. Like it's funny, but at the same time, yeah, having people come in and shit, it's like when I compare it to the last time I think I really, really cared about music, and that was sort of like, yeah, like MySpace days and stuff. And it's like, even just with how you find bands now, it's like, you don't have to do anything. Like back in the day, you'd have to go to your favorite bands, like top 8 on MySpace, and check out other bands. You'd get samplers from labels. You'd, go on It Leaked or whatever, or all these websites, and it's like for fans up, and you like had to go to shows, and that wasn't necessarily feasible for a lot of people. For a number of different reasons, but now it's like you don't even have to do anything. You like open up TikTok and you could hear a band that you like, and like, yeah, it can be goofy and it can be like, but at the very least, those people are coming, and it's like they're kind of open, like they're open to stuff. There's a lot less like gatekeeping in that crowd. I think, they're just kind of stoked, and it's like, yeah, maybe they don't know what they're doing and they look kind of fucking dumb at first, but it's like, they'll get it. Like either they'll get it or they'll just stop coming, and then either way, problem solved. So,
right. Yeah.
I think it's, I think we're in like a really cool spot right now. Like sort of seeing a lot of these bands doing these things that are insane. And it's like, I never thought that was possible. Like, it's, it's like, it's wild to see for sure. Like, like having, like Spirit Box and like Meg Thee Stallion are like on each other's songs and stuff. And it's like on that same Meg Thee Stallion record, like she has twice, like my favorite K-pop artist. And it's like, it's like, it's all like 1 degree of separation now. And I'm just like, this is insane. Like,
right.
Before it would be like, oh, maybe, this label, they're distributed by this big label, and someone knows somebody, and now whatever. And like, oh, here, you like, we'll save you like a promo copy of a CD, and that's it. And it's like, now they're like on each other's songs and stuff. And it's so much more like tight knit. And I think it's sick. Like,
yeah,
I don't see how it can affect it negatively. Like I said, aside from little tiny annoyances or whatever, but it's like, but they kind of sort themselves out. Like anyone that has like an issue with it or whatever, it's like, you're not really looking at the big picture here. It's like when you zoom out, how could this be anything but a good thing?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. This is kind of a cheeky question, but one I'm sure you have a take on, because I know you have at least experienced one of these things. What would you define as a cornier, a Zyn or vaping?
I have lots of experience with both. Right. I think for sure vaping, like, also crazy segue into this. Definitely did not expect that to be coming out of your mouth, but, I think vaping is for sure the corniest. There's no way to look cool. And at least with Zyns, like you kind of put it like under your lip, and you just don't have to worry about it. Like literally nobody will see it. It's not like a chewing tobacco type thing where you gotta like have a huge wad in your lip and like spit into a shitty crumpled water bottle or whatever. But yeah, like, I mean, it's kind of hard to look cooler than smoking cigarettes. So, it's a tough one for sure. It's hard to beat, but, I think vaping, yeah, for sure. It's like even when I look, like I'm holding it in my hand right now, I'm looking at it. It's like this stupid little thing that I have to hit every like minute,
Yep.
And then the Zyns, it's like, okay, cool. Like, well, I can't vape on the plane, so I have to have my Zyns. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's so insane. Like nicotine as a whole is so fucking stupid. Like it doesn't even do anything. Like I have to have it now. Like it does, at least drinking, whatever, drugs, it's like, cool, they get you messed up. Like they can change something. I'm like, nicotine doesn't do anything, but I'm addicted to it and I just have to have it. I'm like, this is so stupid. Vaping's definitely the corniest. I will say, I think it's gotten a lot better. I remember when when vapes first sort of became a thing and you had people hitting those, like, they look like mason jars and it's like all that, and they're blowing like huge clouds and doing tricks and everything. It's just like, yo, like you gotta fucking get laid. Like you have to, get laid one time. This is so embarrassing. But now they're at least discreet. I think Juul kind of helped that pop off. But I don't know, I guess they also helped a lot of kids get a nicotine addiction. So
totally, you're
there's not
there's
great.
Some pros and cons.
Yeah, there's but I mean, good for them. Good for them. I mean, they got a lot of heat. They personally weren't telling kids to hit it. They weren't like, hey, 15-year-old, like, check out this, like, it tastes like mango, isn't this sick? And you can hide it anywhere. It looks like a USB stick, like, but yeah, and obviously it just kind of happened. So shame on them, but I miss them for sure.
Totally. No, the reason I asked that is because I know people that have an experience with that. Like it's like certain aspects, they're more embarrassed with one or the other. And that's what like, I think is it's like, God, I can't believe I have to do this, but like this sucks way more than this thing. But like you said, you need both to exist as a human. So, you know, they're devils in the details.
Like,
right.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, I mean, for me, like I stopped smoking and, like it was like, I tried a Juul. We stopped at a gas station on tour and it was like, get this vape. And it's like this tiny little thing. And I was like, okay, like that seemed whatever, let's try it. And I was like, holy shit, this rocks. And I can kind of do it anywhere. And, you know, it tastes good. And now my clothes don't smell like smoke. And it was like, yeah, like there, like you said, I mean, there's pros, but you definitely look like a dumbass. Like you kind of look like a loser. Regardless, if anything, I'm thinking Zins are probably, you know, because that shit's discreet. Like you can't tell. You know what I mean? But also, yeah, I don't love having this like tingly, like burning little pack in my like right up against my gums. It feels weird as hell. But if it's that or don't vape for 9 hours on a flight to Europe, like I'm taking the Zins for sure.
Yeah, you're like, I gotta hit this.
Yeah, I gotta have something.
Heavy music merchandise and records. That is what Evil Greed describes themselves as. And I agree wholeheartedly with them. But no joke, they are an incredible company that sells vinyl, shirts, whatever it is from a specific point of view with the bands and the labels that they work with. They have a curated roster, as it were. I compare them to a record label where it's like they don't just throw open the doors to every single band and record label that approaches them. They work with a curated list. And like, just here's some of the bands that they work with. Speed, Blood Incantation, Brutus, Knocked Loose. It's so cool what they do. If you like artistic heavy stuff, I can guarantee you that evilgreed.net is the place that you need to go. They ship it from Berlin, Germany, where they're headquartered. But us in the United States can take advantage of very cheap shipping rates for us. The dollar is strong or weak. I don't know exactly how it advantages us because I am not an econ major, but all I know is that the shipping from there is cheap. And it's even cooler when you're like going in with friends and be like, hey, let's just do a nice big order where we get a bunch of cool shirts and vinyl, all from this rad company at one website. Makes it super, super simple. So go to evilgreed.net, support a rad independent business, and order a lot of cool merch from a lot of cool bands. This is also random, but I know that you probably have some experience with people, like especially more of your early touring life. What would you say the either the best and or worst advice that you received for existing on tour? Whether it was something that someone said where it was just like, dude, that I can't believe that person shared that with me because that doesn't seem practical at all or whatever. Or alternatively, something that someone dropped on you that you're like, I still think about that one sentence that person said to this date.
I mean, it's gonna be tough to kind of rack my brain for specifics, but
sure.
I mean, there are a lot, like, you know, even. And it's like little things, right? They're never, usually they're never crazy. I feel like the long-winded sort of like, you know, this will make touring easier type thing. They kind of never stick because you have to just do so, like, there's so much to it, you know, like when I see people, you know, like packing for tour and stuff, and it's like, you know, they're bringing this like huge bag and they're like, oh yeah, like, you know, got a lot of clothes and I've got like my snacks and like all this shit. And it's just like, dude, like food's kind of everywhere, like depending on where you're touring, obviously, but it's like, you're good. Like, yeah, I mean, when I leave for tour, it's like I bring my medicine, you know, and
right.
And stuff like that, and like little things and stuff. But when I see some of these like, you know, these like sort of like big ideas where it's like there's so many moving parts to it, I'm just like, I'm like, I know I'm never gonna do that. Like, I'm gonna buy this thing and I'm never gonna do it. So I kind of stay away from it. But, you know, there's been some, like, I can't remember, I don't even remember like who told me, but the big one, I mean, like, I guess the concept of like show clothes, it's like when we first started touring, it was like, I'm changing my clothes every day because I'm playing a set in them. I'm getting sweaty. And it's like, you don't know when the next time you're going to do laundry is. So for like, as far, like, I don't remember the last time I did that at this point, but yeah, just having like it's almost like a costume basically, but it's like,
Sure.
It's like having your like, okay, like I got new shoes, so I'm going to play in my old ones, and just having like socks and underwear and shirts like specifically for the stage. And it's like, yeah, you sweat in them, they stink, like it's awful, but you wear your normal clothes throughout the day, you change into your show clothes, you just go on stage, you're at a heavy show, everybody fucking stinks and is dirty. So like, you just blend in, if anything, and then you get off stage, you take off your shitty, disgusting clothes, you take a shower and put your normal clothes back on. And it's like, because of that, I like pack so much less now. Like when I see people going on tour and stuff and they're like, okay, I'm gone for 25 days. So the, 25 shirts and 5 pairs of pants and, 30 pairs of underwear. Got to have a couple in case I like piss myself. I'm just like, you're fucking dreaming. Like,
Right.
I'm good. It's like, I've got enough. And I'm just like really kind of banking on, at the very least, like I'm going to a laundromat and doing laundry, or going to a hotel and, with a pocket full of quarters and doing it there. That's a huge one. Obviously depending on the size of the band, airline status, crazy, like insanely underrated. I think it was like Stick to Your Guns that kind of got us into that, because they were all from different areas, right? So they would all have to like fly to a central location to start a tour and then have to fly home at the end of it. And I think they were like, yeah, we just fly United because we all have status. And it kind of got me thinking. And I'm just like, okay, well, pretty much if we fly anywhere, we're flying Air Canada. So I'm like, okay, they got this like Aeroplan thing. And I switched to like the band has like an Aeroplan credit card. Like I personally have one. And now it's huge because when we go to the airport and it's like, okay, there's 7 of us, we're flying out. You get one checked bag, or like, on a international flight, maybe even none. And we can buy the cheaper version of the ticket where you don't get a checked bag. And it's like, oh, we all have status. So we all get like 3 bags checked for free, and like priority security and priority baggage. Like it comes out first, like all of these things, like that's a huge one for sure. And like, as soon as I started doing that, I was like, all right, like I can't believe I used to go to the airport like without this. It's a game changer. Like you get to, you get your own priority like check-in lane, and you just walk up and they're like, they don't give a shit. Like if you go to a normal lane and there's like 6 people with 20 check bags, they're just like, oh God, and like they try to like, they're going to like nickel and dime you for every little thing. And then you go to the big dick, like, 50K status, like line. And they're just like, how many bags? Okay, whatever. And they just like print off that many bag tags. Like they don't even weigh it half the time. And it's like, they just don't care because they're like, okay, you've spent enough, clearly.
Right.
That's
you're committed to us as a brand. Yeah.
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 I think one of the worst ones, and this is probably just like a personal thing, because I hate doing it. Remember like back in the day when bands were touring and everything, and it was like, yo, like just call Chipotle, or like just call like Chick-fil-A or whatever, and just like ask them, and like they give you free food. It's like, yes, they have in the past, but it's like that shit, like I don't have it in me. Like calling and being like, because it's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to like call Chipotle and be like, I can afford your food, but I don't want to pay for it. Gimme, like, just give it to me for free. It's like, I'm in a band. It's hard. Like, trying to convince someone on the, it's like, it's probably like, it's probably somebody my age just being like, sounds like a you problem. Like, I didn't like, it's not my fault. You like breakdowns, and you scream and didn't go to college. Like, that's on you, dog. And then I remember when that was going around and everybody knew about it. And I was just like, dude, it's going to get to a point where like all of them, like collectively, like even the one like Chipotle, like they were the ones that did it. It's just going to hit a point where eventually they're going to be like, yo, we're not doing this anymore. Like it's done. And, you know, not only that, it's like, yeah, so that happened. And now like even the people that are going to Chipotle and like paying for their food are getting screwed over with like the portion sizes and stuff. It's like, you know, I remember just everybody doing that. I'm like, dude, if you want to call somebody and like pretend to be like poor and more hard up than you actually are, like, you know, and be on hold for an hour and talk to 3 different managers to save $8, like you do you. I'm like, it's fine. You know what is, you know, like, you know what else I can do? I could just go eat McDonald's because it's $1. Like I'll just do that. So that was a big one. I hated that. And yeah, and having to call and like pretend, you know, like bands would be like, just tell them you're a Christian band. I'm like, dude, what if they like quiz me, you know, like what if they ask something about it?
Yeah, what's my favorite Bible verse, right?
Right? Like I remember when it was like we did have a day off and I everyone was bugging me, and I think I was probably the only one that had like an American, like I bought a SIM card as soon as we got there because I was like, I need my phone. I'm not going off Wi-Fi. So like, you're the only one with phone, like call. And I did, and I said we were a Christian band, and you know, it's like we were like we called this movie theater, and we're like going through everything, and I'm you know, I'm like somebody's like showing me the show times for what's playing, and they're like, yeah, sure, like we can do that. Like, what movie do you guys want to see? And I'm like, okay, so our choices are like the fucking, what is it, like it's like Justin Timberlake, Mila Kunis, like rom-com movie, or some movie about like the devil, like, you know, it's like The Exorcist basically, but a new version. And I'm just like, I don't think like a Christian band's going to see either of these. And I'm just like, fuck, like how do I, you know, I'm like, so I mean, we ended up going to see the rom-com one, but I'm like, yo, like what if they ask, you know what I mean? Like what if I'm like, yeah, we're going to go see whatever, like the Sinner movie, and they're just like, huh, like some Christian band, like what am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to keep it together. I'm going to be like, oh fuck, you got me, my bad, like metal horns. But you know, it's I just I hate asking for shit. It sucks. Yeah, I mean, I'll ask on stage for people's money, but
yeah,
that's a different, sorry, I won't ask. I'll tell them to give it to me, or I'm going to blow my brains out. But
of course,
yeah.
There's a demand there. Well, there's at least a trade off, because you know you are you know, somewhat entertaining them, and then in turn, you know, they can buy a piece of, you can be the traveling T-shirt salesman you always meant to be. Yeah,
exactly. That I can do. I can't call Chipotle and be like, oh, just like, what about a buy one get one? Then it's like, I don't have it in me. I just call, and if they're like, I don't think we, and I'm just like, fuck you, and just hang up. I'm like, I don't have it in me. I can't keep it together.
Yeah, totally. I've been interested in the inception of your love for K-pop. That's, I think it's been very consistent in your life. And how did it initially get like introduced to you? Because you definitely are, you know, what I would perceive as to be more on the, you know, deep subculture. You're like, you know, 9 layers deep. Like Blackpink is just like, oh guys, come on, calm down. When did you first get exposed to that? And it seems like your love for that also dovetails in well with, you know, 5th-rate melodic hardcore bands that you all are also into. So yeah, walk me through your K-pop introduction.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I think that like, so like, I guess like my whole life, I love a lot of different like subcultures of music and different genres and everything. And I think it's really cool sort of like, you know, go like doing that and like, and doing your research and sort of being like, okay, like I'm really into like grind at the moment, and then like going and kind of going backwards and being like, okay, so like, and sort of getting a better understanding of a genre. I like that. I've always been a fan of that. At the same time, I've always had a soft spot for just like good pop music. Like I think that they're like, they're kind of polar opposites in a way. And that's why, like, and I don't know if it's like a grass is always greener kind of thing, but I think it's like, you know, yes, like if you take Counterparts or End, or, like our music is like, it's pretty complicated, and, there's like a lot to it, and like there's so much going on. And then a lot of people sort of see pop as like this, like, oh, whatever, it's just like a 20 producers like in a thing, and and it's like, oh, like it's easy, it's like verse chorus, like whatever, the lyrics are whatever, it doesn't matter. And it's like, yes, but like you have to at least, like, you have to understand the target audience. Like they're not trying to like write a heavy breakdown for breakdown fans. Like they're trying to write a song that is so catchy that like this is for like the world. It's not for 1,000 or so kids in every city that like to mosh. It's like, this is for like the world, for everyone, and it's like it's a different, like they're both, to me, it's like they're both so complicated in different ways, like, yeah, I mean, I sure, give me a guitar and it's like, I'll figure out the chords or whatever, like to a pop song. Like, yes, it's a lot easier to play than a Counterpart song would be, for sure. But if but it's like, imagine being like, oh, you have to write a song for the biggest artist in the world. Like, don't fuck it up. It's like, that to me is so much scarier. So I've always had a respect for it, and I've always enjoyed it. And I think that because it's the opposite, like there are genres and stuff where I go so in depth, and I do so much research, and I love all the little like intricacies about them individually. But then I just hear a catchy pop song, and it just gets stuck in my head, and I'm like, that song fucking rocks. Like, that's like a good song. And so I've always liked both, right? And then I got into K-pop because of, like I again, yeah, like always a pop fan, like huge, like, first couple Kesha records, like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, whatever, like all like, 90s, 2000s, like pop hits, like love it. Right. And then so when K-pop like sort of had its like explosion, I had, I'm sure I, like everybody else, I was just like, okay, well, like, I don't know what the fuck they're saying. Like, I don't know Korean. Like, what am I, and I had a lot of like reservations about it. And then it was like, I guess like hearing, I think it was like, Will Putney, like his wife, Marissa, she was working for, I think it's The Orchard. And she said that she was working with BTS on something. And, I'd never really like listened to them. And she was kind of showing, like, I remember we were at Will's house recording, and there was a crazy storm and the power went out. It's actually what flooded the old Graphic Nature studio. And we were sitting in his kitchen with like light off of a generator. Like it only worked, like the generator for his house only worked in the kitchen. And we were just looking for stuff to do. And Marissa's like, yeah, you guys want to hear the new BTS song? And it was like, Permission to Dance, I think. And she showed it to us, and we were just like, fuck, that's like good. We're like, yeah, that's just like a good song. And then that one also, it's like, that song was all in English. And it was just like, oh shit, like they know English. And she's like, some of them. And it's like, that was really funny to me, being like, oh, like someone's writing these lyrics in English, and they're like, yeah, they like get it to an extent, but it's like, like if someone right now is like phonetically typed out, like, this is how, like, this is what you're saying in Korean, like this, like it's phonetically, sounded out, just do your best. I'd be like, no, I'm going to blow it. But they're just like down to do it. And yeah, so then from that and like BTS, and it was like, being interested in pop, and like my roommate, Adrian, like he was in Counterparts for a bit. Him, he another huge pop fan, and we would always talk about stuff. And he started, I guess, like hearing about K-pop because it's like similar songwriters, and this person wrote, this song for like a Western artist, I guess, and like they're also writing for K-pop, and there's a lot of crossover. And we just started listening to him, and it was like, and I don't know like how they do it, but it's like they've almost like taken pop as we know it, and just like in Korea, for whatever reason, they just like perfected it. And it was like, like, yeah, okay, you want pop, like this is like pop on like expert level, like it's got everything. It's like, like no one in the group's ugly, like only hotties, like, and just like fucking, and they're all good, and everybody has their own part, and it's like, oh, he's like the main rapper, but the kind of like the second like best dancer, and then like this person is like the best vocalist, but they can't dance that good, and like there's all these like elements to it, and it's just like, and yeah, I mean, it's not the best thing in the world, like especially when you hear about them, like how the K-pop like trainees and shit, like people are like they're basically going to like idol school to learn how to be a K-pop star, and it's like, they're like, okay, yeah, you gotta like practice. You wake up at like 6, and then you like you get like you only get breakfast and lunch if your weight's in the right zone. If you're too heavy, yeah, you like have some fucking water. It's like, it's definitely not great. It's not it's not good. It's kind of fucked up, but it's like these factories, like it's like they almost treat it, they treat it the exact opposite that I think like bands and heavy music treat their stuff, where it's like, oh, this doesn't feel right, like I'm not doing it, like it has to be real. It's almost like the polar opposite of that, and I thought that was like really cool, and it's just really different than what I'm used to. And but they nailed it, and it's like the stuff's good, and like then you get into like people, like certain groups, it's like like every group has like their own like reality show almost, where they have like cameras following them, and it's like they're just hanging out and chilling, and you like get to figure like, oh, I like them, they're the funny one, like they're always making everybody laugh, like, oh, that one's got like a temper, like it just kind of, it's so crazy to me, like the whole idea of it is so nuts. And just because at this point, yeah, I'm kind of bored with heavy music, I'm like, I need something else here, something new and exciting, and for whatever reason it just lined up perfectly with K-pop, and that was it. And I was just like, okay, like, yeah, I'm gonna start checking out some other artists, and then it goes from like, yeah, BTS is pretty cool, to like, oh, like Diane from Twice, it's like, well, yeah, like, oh, well, her favorite color is this, and like, oh, well, she went to school here, and it's like, why do I know this? Like, why do I know these things about these people? It's like insane how in depth it is, and like the fandom's crazy, and it's like, yeah, like even if I like post something, it's like it goes both ways. It's like someone will like we'll put out the music video, and then K-pop stan accounts will be like, I don't know what the hell this is, but this guy loves Twice, so everybody like stream it,
everybody support it,
like,
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. But then other times I'll be like, I'll like post something like, oh, new Twice fucking rocks, and then I'll have like a K-pop stan account be like, shut up, cracker, you're old, and I'm like, fuck me, like, all right. And it's like, it's kind of sick, like it rocks, you know what I mean? Like you kind of get both ends with it, and I'm just like, fuck, this is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I can't really pinpoint when it happened. It's just like, it feels like, yeah, that I was like, yeah, I mean, I like pop music. Like, this is pretty good, to like, okay, fine. I'll like, I'll bug everybody I know at like Live Nation, booking agencies, labels, whatever. Like, I couldn't get a ticket. I got up and, tried to get a ticket, and they're all $1,000. So I just want one for retail, or like for the normal price, $300 US. I'm like, how? Oh, and then I have to buy a flight on top of it. I'm like, when did this happen? Like,
right.
It was like overnight. It went from like, it's pretty good, to just like, oh, this is a huge part of my life now. But I can't recommend it enough. If you like pop and just appreciate good songwriting, it's like they're the best at it. So,
yeah,
they just perfected it. And
yeah,
it's so good. I love it.
That's awesome. The last thing I wanted to hit on was and this kind of goes back to what we were originally talking about, in comparison to, you playing the show with Kublai and, people not knowing who E-Town Concrete is and stuff. Context is less important these days, because to your point, there's, people are drinking from a fire hose of information, music, movies, everything. And for you, trying to place the fact that your band has, existed for a long time, and like playing shows that people have no idea who you are versus, a headlining show where people should theoretically know who you are. Is it one of those things where for you, it doesn't necessarily matter, obviously, as long as the people are right in front of you and they're interacting with your art in some capacity? Or is it also important because there is context important to you because you want to, and I know you've been really vocal about you, like where your inspiration has come from to, be in the band and all that sort of stuff. So how do you, I guess, kind of think about those two trains of thought?
I think like when it comes to, I guess like if I had to pick one off the top of my head, I mean it's really hard to beat like a good headline show. And I think that when you kind of book a headliner, like, yes, it's scary, especially doing what we're doing, where it's like, okay, these are the biggest rooms we've ever tried to play, and it's like not even like, oh yeah, it's like 400 more people bigger. It's like, oh no, it's like 1,000 people bigger. Like, and like it's really scary. But I think like it's on both ends of that. It's like there are positives and negatives where it's like, okay, you're headlining, and it's like, yeah, for the most part, like everyone that's still in the room by the time you play, like, yeah, they like your band. Like, I whatever, maybe not, but like for the most part. So I think that there's that like safety there. That is really, it's really nice to have that. But at the same time, it's like, if you just do that forever, then how do you grow? How do you, how does your fan base grow at all? Like, how do you put your music in front of new listeners? Like, it makes it so much harder. So I think that that's been a really important thing for Counterparts where, yeah, like I love headlining. Like it fucking rocks. Like, you get like the most amount of room on stage. You get the biggest green room. You get to do whatever you want. Like, it's your show. Like I love that. But I know that if we just did that forever, like then we're just going to stay the, 500 to 1,000 kids a night band. And that's it. And there's no hope of kind of getting any bigger, appealing to new people, because you're not. Like it's pretty much the same people. And it's like, you can do that and be successful for sure. There's a lot of bands that do that. And it's, and if you're cool with that, that rocks. I just think for us, there is still a need to like, at the core of it, we want the band, like we want as many people as possible to hear our music, right? Like isn't that why we're doing it? So like you kind of have to do those things. Like you have to take a support offer and open a tour and be the smallest band and get treated like the smallest fucking band and, play to 10,000 kids and maybe like 500 of them know who you are and everybody else is like, huh, for the whole set. And like, yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks. Like it kind of bites to do that. Like, especially with me where it's like, like what we talked about, like how I like present myself in the band and how I act on stage and stuff. Like it is really hard sometimes to sort of like get a grip on those kids and like make them pay attention. It can be difficult. And a lot of times I don't want to even do that, but it's a necessary thing. It's like, it's something that you maybe you don't have to do, but it's something that we want to do, where that's sort of when you start seeing like a return of on investment in a way where, we'll do a headline tour and it's like, okay, we're doing Glass House in Pomona or something, and then turn around and it's like, okay, well, we've done a couple of these support tours. We put out an EP, like, let's try something bigger. And yeah, maybe when we did LA with Devil Wears Prada and Fit, like our set was kind of busted. Like it was, it's like, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember. I'm not saying it was, but like, yeah, it could have been like kind of whack, but that could have been 1,000 people in the room that have never heard of us before. And then they went home and started listening and now they're a fan. So then when we do House of Blues, like that could be 1,000 more kids coming. And then it's like everybody wins, you know what I mean? So you kind of have to put yourself in that position with tours and even festivals and stuff. Like, I fucking hate playing festivals. It's the worst. It's this like all day thing where you somehow always end up like covered in mud and with a sunburn, and it's awful. But like, you do that and you get to play to like 50,000 people, and maybe 49,000 know who you are, you know? And it's like the payoff comes from, you know, doing your own thing afterwards and sort of seeing like, okay, was the sunburn worth it? Was ruining my shoes worth it? And you're like, yeah, like it's kind of hard in the moment to notice that it is worth it. But when you get that payoff in the end, it's like, fuck, okay. Yeah, I guess that was a smart thing to do. So I think it is really important to do both. I think we've kind of been lucky to sort of find a way for us to be able to do both, to where it's like, yeah, our fans, like, we all, like, at the end of the day, like, they back us. Like, we can branch out and do some weirder stuff and some weirder tours, but like, we're always coming back to give them, you know, like, yeah, maybe we're playing a 25-minute set in their city and it's $100 ticket and we're opening, but like, they know eventually, like, we're coming back, we're playing for an hour and the ticket's going to be $30. And I think that being able to do both and sort of use both to your advantage is a really, really important thing in our world. You know, again, going back to the, like we talked about, like the attention span and like how, if you finally get a hold of people, like how long can you hold on to them before there's something else, or they just lose interest, or their brain wanders or something. So it is really tricky, but I think, you know, as long as we keep doing it and as long as we don't see a dip in it, we'll be doing this for a long, long time. So yeah, I'm lucky. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm like, like, I feel lucky now. Maybe if I'm 50 years old and like don't have it and I can't do anything else with my life and I'm stuck doing this forever, I might think differently. But for right now, I'm stoked. I'm stoked with it. And I think that, yeah, like, I'm happy with this, like, very slight upward trajectory that the band's been on for this long. And I think we've been able to maintain that kind of because we can play both. We can play for both teams, you know?
There you go. Thank you very much, Brenden, for coming on the show and hanging out with me. It's always a pleasure. And shout out to Tim, his publicist, because he is a friend of the show and just a great dude. Love him. Love both of them. Next week is our last in the live episode series that I've been doing with the New England Metal and Hardcore Festival, Peeps, where I recorded that back a couple of months ago. And it is a big one. It's a big one for me. I was doing split 7 inches for this. This one is dedicated to its own episode because it's 2 people. It's Dwid and Aaron from Integrity. I was able to sit down with them, do a dual interview, and it was so interesting because here's these people. I've had Aaron on the podcast before, never had Dwid, but these are people that have like loomed large in my life as far as the amount of music I've consumed from them, and having them sit in front of me and answer my questions, man, it was a real thrill, and I know you'll have a good time. So shout out to the people at New England Metal and Hardcore Festival, and that's what we got next week. Dwid and Aaron from Integrity live at New England Metal and Hardcore Festival. Until then, please be safe, everybody.